Uh, all right. Well, this is the Authenticity VR podcast, and we're all about meditation and breathing. And that's why we brought you on. And we're doing
Yay.
entertainment, virtual reality therapy, and
Mhm.
everything in regards to that. And so, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Nice. Yeah, beautiful. Thanks for having me. My name is Hannes Bent. I'm based in New York mostly. Um, I'm mostly focused on breathing. So I run a company called Breathing.AI. I worked on multiple VR, AR biofeedback projects, breathing biofeedback, and heart rate biofeedback. I worked in neuroscience for a few years and worked with Wim Hof for many years, with a lot of other peers on and off, and mostly yogic peers, meditation peers, science peers. But I really believe that deep breathing and breathing awareness can um, help people feel better and ultimately help humanity tremendously, actually. So I'm very invested in just deep breathing mostly.
Awesome. And what's your mission and values of your company? What would be your statement?
Oh yeah, well we have the 5 seeds to grow, but C as an ABC, the C. So like we have we have compassion. That's like foundation. Compensation. Everybody needs to be compensated, you know, more than they wish for. And collaboration is really a foundation too. Commitment, I think, is very important. Like integrity, commitment, and collaboration, of course, because everybody needs to be able to work together. And communication. I think it's oftentimes underestimated what communication can do. Just open, transparent, vulnerable communication. So those are our 5 key values. And so as seeds to grow in a way, like seeds with a C, and so kind of trying to grow that tree, those values.
Those are beautiful values. I think every company probably needs to put those first
Oh, thank
before
you.
everything else. That's awesome. And you started Breathing AI in this is one of your more recent companies. So you had these other things going on before. When did this start, and how long have you been going for? And how long do you plan on going?
Yeah, no question. Well, actually, it's my first company, and I cannot imagine something else. So, because in the long run, I want to combine deep breathing and deep learning. So while we're using any technical device, there's machine learning on the back end, which learns how to adapt the technical device we're using to help us to feel better and breathe deeper. Before that, I had a career in the arts. I exhibited internationally at different museums. I worked in neuroscience for a few years, and then environmental science. I've always been an activist since the age of 6 or 7, to advocating for whales, for the oceans. Yeah, I mean, since I moved to the US almost 10 years ago, I was mostly working in either art regarding to environmental science and um, yeah, neuroscience. I was in the quantum and nanoscale physics lab for 2 years as a visiting scholar. What else? I worked with Wim Hof for a few years on VR projects. I worked with multiple research universities, so it's always been a wild mixture. But I learned a lot that we kind of, yeah, we didn't need to develop something as a product because all this museum exhibitions, all this papers, won an award at Stanford, and so they only go so far, and they can only reach so many people. I think it needs to be developed as a product so more people can use it and it's scalable. So that led me to start a company. It was never really my intention to run a company. So, but now I know with more revenue, we can grow more and faster and scale it more. And our products are focused on well-being. So I'm really grateful I can merge all my experience before into this one company. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you niched down at an early age to do environmental stuff, and breathing, I think, has a lot to do with that, and being more conscious, more aware of our impact on the earth, right?
Yeah. And I remember the first time I was aware or became aware of my breathing, well, consciously, I can remember now, just as a kid, somewhere where I thought, wait, my breathing. And then I thought, aware of my breathing? What if I'm not aware of my breathing anymore? What will happen? And then obviously, like, I mean, of course, I didn't, keep my breathing awareness, but then I did so much training with Wim Hof, with yoga. I'm a yoga instructor too and stuff. So I trained myself to become aware of my breathing at all times. And I almost feel like it would feel very harsh to not be aware of my breathing anymore. But it also helped me to get over intense anxiety and depression I had after a birth trauma I had. So I just learned like this breathing awareness makes me feel so much more integrated and feel the trust and sense this exchange with my environment almost all the time. And also with deep breathing, I can nourish my inner organs and tree of life in a way, or tree of the lung wings look like a tree upside down in my lungs. So it's that's really convinced me from like this feeling like this, that integrating this breathing awareness into everyday life through technology, or I guide meditation as well in offices or for preschools or in jails. So I see the benefits daily of like peers I guide, but also I feel it with every breath. So I I believe when people feel their breathing more, their heart rate more, feeling their presence more, they are more likely to take better care of themselves, of each other, and the planet. Because I think oftentimes environmental projects or governmental rules or changes of behavior are very hard. It's not easy to change one's own behavior, or oftentimes environmental projects are cleaning up after something, making something aware, but we're so driven to what's next. So if the next thing is more fun but it integrates deep breathing, then we're probably more careful for each other and the planet. So that it was a long and winding road to this, but I really, really believe in deep breathing and awareness of breathing as fundamentally changing one's health and happiness for the better. So.
That's awesome. You said that it's been a bit of a challenge to get to this point, merging technology with consciousness seems like a kind of a paradox at times, to do the very thing that's pushing us towards climate change and all these things, but to bring it back to something where we are being more careful and conscious about how we proceed with technology. So maybe talk about some of those setbacks that you've had getting to the point where you are now, and just maybe some of the struggles that you've been through, and where you are now. Maybe talk a little bit about the struggles, the setbacks, and challenges that you faced up to this point.
Yeah. I guess it's like societal conditioning in a way. So I just like to give one example. Hopefully it's understandable. So mostly people breathe through their chest. So that's how I grew up too, but actually that's not how I started, or most people start. We all breathe through our belly. So I'm just like, highlighting this, like, that's how toddlers are breathing. They only can breathe through their belly. So, and then later on, they probably pick up at the age of 3 and 4, when humans are able to expand their rib cage, this shallow breathing. And so similar to me, after birth trauma, I had very, shallow breathing. And then the people who had trauma or depression, anxiety or something, oftentimes they breathe more shallow.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
I,
from up here,
I
you're saying.
yeah, just like here. So, but our lung wings also almost expanding, to our shoulder blades or so. If you look them up, where they're like all the way down here. So if we extend our belly first and then our chest, we breathe so much more wholesome. And then we can just let go on an exhale. And so Wim Hof, he also says this, and him and I are very, very much aligned in this. Just, breathing is just like a connection to so much more, almost like unlimited energy. And also, it's kind of like sometimes too simple to be true. So, I think I was sometimes, even as a child being aware of it, I didn't continue it. And then when I did my first yoga class about 10 years ago or so, I wasn't probably aware that death might be it or something. Because I mean, a lot of people say yoga means union and breath as well. So it took took some kind of convincing and coming back to it and learning how many different meditation techniques and cultures who have a very holistic approach of focusing on breathing. Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, Vipassana meditation. There's so many, and they oftentimes have a strong focus on breathing. And then I think when we talk about technology, as you mentioned, it's not that technology is separate in a way. That's often perceived as like technology is separate. I think technology is an extension of human intelligence and what we're focusing on and what we're developing. So it's just like what we're highlighting in a way and what we're placing our values on. So if we placing our values on kind of integrating biofeedback, internal awareness, and then using AI for this, then the technology we're developing is all of a sudden supporting well-being. And it can still integrate all these other components, all these other programs we're using, but if there's a focus on well-being and an integrated biofeedback, then we don't, which is kind of left out of society in many ways too. Like there's people have to go to an extra yoga class or like take an extra 15 minutes on a meditation app or so. It's not integrated into our daily work routine or into our daily commute or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I strongly believe bringing this breathing awareness through AI, which is only possible now, into technology will fundamentally be possible to alter us, help us feel better. And it also wasn't really possible before. And I think coming to this point where almost everybody has at least one phone or multiple phones, helps to kind of reach more people with this awareness versus, if we wouldn't have this technology, but the same kind of stress levels right now, it's like, it's not possible for most people to, take an hour of meditation every day or an hour of yoga or even just a week here in New York City. I don't know how it is where you live, but people here are very, very stressed and have very little time, even
Yeah,
just to take a good sleep. So,
lots of high tension.
so I mean, and then for the struggles, I think that's the main, being convinced from the few peers I've been meeting that, breathing awareness and internal awareness can make a huge difference. And then, even after reading Wim's paper, there's a PNAS paper on Wim Hof's method. It was came out in 2013, 14. And with 20 or 30 minutes of breathing, people were able to resist injection of E. coli bacteria. So, I was working with Dr. Michael Posner and the lab of Ed Vogel and other scientists at the University of Oregon at the time. And I remember brilliant researchers, much smarter than me, I sent them this paper. It's like, this is crazy. I didn't say it was crazy, but it is a very, very convincing paper. And it was reviewed in Nature, the top science journal. And it still didn't, reach that much acceptance or among the peers there. And so it's kind of hard to convince people of that something so simple like deep breathing can really be so helpful. But it is not so easy, I got lost into my mind sometimes and pursued other things and then be like, oh, wait, if I can come back to my breathing, it's in every moment, it will help me to and exhale, let go of things and to nourish myself with every inhale. And so it's like, yeah, it's kind of, and it's still like a daily conviction or convincement, of myself. So this is really helpful. And then, so I'm glad that I'm still guiding a lot of meditations on the side, and we work headquarters at
Nice.
Google and schools because I can see the benefits. Because otherwise, if I'm just on my screen and just working on my company with meetings, I'm just like, is this really it? But so it's always nice to see the smiles and benefits deep breathing and meditation can bring to people.
Well, I think it's pretty incredible what Wim Hof has done. And I saw, I believe it's the same paper that you're talking about. I saw that online and started to read through it, but I don't understand half the stuff, the science behind it. But I love how Wim Hof has kind of broken down he's all about bringing the Eastern breathing techniques to the Western society and with the ice and the cold and I actually saw your VR AR kind of holographic experience that you did, and that was really,
Yeah.
really neat. Maybe talk about what you're working on now. You have a patent. You are working on an experience for Wim. You're doing multiple things. It sounds like.
Mhm.
What's kind of the thing that you'd love to share with people and
Mhm.
get out there about how how your company, you mentioned it's going to change things, and hopefully it will. Not trying to convince people, but what are you hoping to get with this patent, and what is the patent, and what progress are you making now?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So for the people who don't know, like Wim Hof is like a peer, like he's also called the Iceman. He kind of worked just by himself or with his family for decades until his kids were old enough to start it as a business, and then more people worldwide became aware of this kind of breathing technique and cold immersion. So I learned about it when I worked in science, and then I don't know, the past years he became super famous when I was there at his village where he's still living. People said, "Oh yeah, he was just living under an attic, just a few years ago, and just doing." It's probably okay to share this. He's like working on like kids' birthdays or something. Just recently, and just helping all ages, really. Just like kind of really like selflessly. So that was a really big inspiration too. And going up a cold mountain with them, where he was in shorts. We filmed him there, and that's still not published. So it's still a project we kind of can continue working on. We have a lot of beautiful footage there. So people look up Wim Hof and VR or AR, it will come up as a YouTube playlist, and then everybody who has a VR headset can actually, or have like the YouTube app or something, can see it in 3D, or 360, and then VR is an experience. And so that's always an interest, but just running a company takes up all my time, oftentimes all my nights. So we are developing Breathing.AI with a patented technology, and we're personalizing screen experiences. And so what the patent covers is basically the customizing the screen experience to each user. So let's say, people who are looking at this right now, or you and I, the brightness of the screen device could change, or the contrast, the saturation, to our nervous system, and to help us feel calmer. And so the way we detect it is we use the webcam or the smartphone camera to analyze heart rate, and then our patented adaptive interfaces would learn on the back end, while you don't have to do anything, what's the most calming screen experiences. So for instance, now in a video stream, it could be brightness and contrast. If you're writing an email, the background color makes a big difference. A lot of people switch to dark mode right now, or changing the font size. So that's all not possible right now. It's always static, or you have to go to settings and you change it, but you don't really know how dark mode influences your nervous system. So we are providing this kind of real-time adapting of the screen experiences. And our patent also covers audio and olfactory. So I think in the future, people will speak with adaptive voices, personalized voices. So imagine right now, some people might not like Siri's voice or Alexa's voice, or maybe you can change it to different voices, but still you don't know how that voice affects your nervous system. And having a voice that is more soothing and you might perceive faster might help you when somebody's driving or so. So if somebody's driving and they have a calmer experience with like listening to the Google Maps voice or so, or Maps voice, it might help to avoid accidents. It reduces the stress levels over the course of the day. So it's basically adaptive interfaces and personalizing the technological experience to the user's nervous system. So kind of still probably complex. I'm working on it every day, so it's still but making the tech experiences we have calmer and stress reducing and smoother in a way, and not focused on revenue. I mean, obviously we want to get revenue of our company, but that's not our primary focus, because if I understand it, if this is not too complex to understand, maybe people understand right now who are listening that this could also have very far-reaching consequences, because if companies are using this for advertisements, then because it can learn about our nervous system in a way that we're not aware of. So while we're using the screen, and if an advertisement pops up, but the company they bought data from a company who does the same kind of technology as we're doing, but the revenue focused on advertisements, then they could basically develop ads that are targeting our nervous system. So unless somebody's a super yogi, and they're aware how their nervous system might be changing, most people are not. So we would see advertisement and they're targeted to each person, each screen user's nervous system. And that's very dangerous, I think, especially, with political ads and influencing somebody's voting tendency or something. So there's a lot of potential manipulation. The government and regulating bodies are oftentimes years behind. And even having a patent doesn't secure us. I just saw a big tech company might copy us. And I told their vice president and their director in Mountain View a few years ago about it. So now they're seemingly copying it. I emailed with them, but it's only then all of a sudden they're getting very secretive. And we're very transparent, very focused on well-being. And obviously we're developing scalable products as well, but it's a different type of revenue model. There's regulations in Mexico already to detect stress levels and to offer well-being. It just launched in October, so hopefully more regulations are coming, and then we're fitting right into that. And people, I think, also right now they prefer a personalized workspace and a more calming environment. And most people are actually better at performing when they're calmer. There's a lot of studies when we're more at ease, more at peace with our nervous system, and then we can comprehend more things, we can perceive more things, we're better at multitasking versus like if we're like more stressed and then like in fight or flight mode, we can only do one task at a time. So we're really working on making this screen experiences more calming, and hopefully our patent will help us in that way to claim the space for well-being. And so that's also a challenge, like going kind of like developing a new business model, developing a new strategy, and making it a win-win-win for everybody. And nobody's data is getting sold without their consent or something.
And on the AI side of things, how are you? I mean, are you releasing that information? You guys are keeping that now that you do have a patent on it. Are you guys releasing that information out to other companies, like selling it for enterprise?
Yeah, I mean, we're not releasing. I mean, the patent obviously is accessible through a USPTO website and databases like Google Patents or so. Adaptive interface for screen-based interactions is called. And so if people want to use any of those claims I mentioned in there's like pending ones as well. So that's not everything, but the pending ones are not visible online yet. So if people are looking to do this, like, we're always happy to license it out or work together. And I'm also very open to offer this patent, to license it out for free in a way, if the project is right, or the company is a nonprofit with a good cause, and so it really depends on that, obviously, that there's a big tech company and they want to use it for, to sell out those biometrical data, physiological data without consent of the user, would probably say like, no, that's not part of our values.
Yeah.
But if it's, like if Patagonia would approach us, or like another company, or like some companies are just so good and so inspirational, obviously, then, and it could also be part of an educational campaign. So using this type of technology, for an advertisement campaign or something could also, like, hey, this is what's happening. And then, if you actually, we can tie in nature images. And so, at the end of the campaign or at the end of the video, people could learn like, oh, your heart rate is much lower when you have water, when you perceive water, and it's, heart rate is a bit higher when you see the sky or something. So, like it could be a suggestion for a background image, maybe somebody would use the water as a background image. So there are different approaches. I would not like categorically deny any usage of it, but we're at a point where we can work together with anybody in a way and license it out. And if it's an internal communication platform for a big bank or whatever, or call center, we can make that much more calming and to offer all those employees a much more soothing experience. And yeah, so it's kind of, there's a high turnover rate in a lot of companies because of stress levels. And the prolonged use of screen time is actually this computer vision syndrome, with over 60% of people have, which is like blurry vision, headache. It's kind of not so known right now, but probably most of us actually have it. There's some estimation that up to 90% of people have it. There's a lot of studies that increased use of screen time will poor academic performances, less white matter in the brain. So just making that screen experiences more calming is like, it's a plus. It's like almost like it's very much needed, I think, but we don't really know that we need this in a way, and that it's possible. Because right now all we're perceiving is always developed by one, like a group of developers somewhere and designers, and then we have to interact with it, or our nervous system has to interact with it. But what if actually our nervous system, AI, and the team of developers will give a few options, and then there's our nervous system, and then there's our adaptive interfaces and AI, and they're kind of like they're all working together. So the team of developers just would give different options, and then through while we're interacting with the device, our interface would learn like, oh, this is much better for the nervous system. So our nervous system in a way co-creates the technological experiences, and that's where I see the future of any technology. And I think it will be like black and white television, the current tech experience we have, because everything is kind of static. We have to go to settings, we have to change brightness, or maybe turn on dark mode or night shift or something. But in the future, that could all be done by AI, and obviously, like, people might feel uncomfortable with giving access to the webcam. So that's one thing. It's an educational component, and also the trust screen users would place onto those companies. And so I think it's hopefully more and more important for companies to be transparent, to be a value-driven company, because if you eventually sell out the user data for the wrong purposes, it's tough. I wouldn't trust that company, because what if let's say this would be activated right now from the company we're using for the video conference, and they would access our heart rate and learn what we're talking about, what gets our heart rate up or down, and then they would sell this information to advertisers. And so wherever we will go, if that company has advertisement, they would learn like, oh, this is your nervous system, it's you there, and it's me there. So wherever we could go, we might have this personalized advertisements, which we literally can't escape it there anymore until there's regulations, but those are oftentimes years behind. So and enforcing those regulations is tricky. So I think it's very important for companies to look at values, or for consumers to look at values of the companies, and is there transparency, is there integrity there. So
Well, I think it's incredible if you guys can stick to those 5 C's and
yeah.
really uh, make sure that is the focus. And if other companies can kind of get the hint there that this is where true happiness is. It's not in the money. It's in
Yeah.
the value for sure. Maybe I appreciate what you shared there. I think it's important that we understand data, especially a company that is going to be using data, to be
Mhm.
conscious about it. I think we will wrap up now, and we would like to know kind of where my listeners kind of can find you online and where
Oh,
they can find out more.
yeah, thank you. I'm always happy to chat with anybody. My name is Hannes Band, double N and Bend. I'm If somebody want to come to my meetups, I do weekly meetups here in New York. I have a meetup group of over 400 people. It's for the meditation. Otherwise, our company is called Breathing.AI. We're at an incubator in New York City called New Inc. for the year, and maybe longer. We're in a few accelerator programs. So that's like just like Breathing.AI. Breathing.ai. And then and then I have a website, hannesband.com, with my older project, and I'm on all the social media things as well, but trying to use that less. But yeah,
Okay.
so yeah, it was like easy to find, and always happy to chat and to learn from my fellow beings.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you so
thank you.
much for
Yeah,
having me.
thank you. This has been enlightening. I'm sure whoever listens to this will be able to gain a lot of value and insight from this, especially people
Um,
who are interested in this space.